Hey guys!
Yay, it's working!
Hey, we're here about to start our feed on our day and night on the reef exhibit. We're going to leave you here with Emily, who's going to tell you all about the critters and creatures that we're going to see and all of our divers and stuff that's going on in the tank today.
They're unreal. Hi everyone, my name's Emily. I am a keeper here at this beautiful aquarium. So I'll just introduce everyone on the screen. So behind the camera we have Rob. In the water today we've got Hope, who's holding the fish and the target here at the moment. And just to her right is Matt, he is backing her up. So we always have two divers in the water when we're doing anything. So you always have your dive buddy with you. It's particularly important when you're feeding, so we always have one diver feeding and one diver backing up. And the backup diver basically just makes sure everything is going smoothly, there's no animals kind of coming in from behind or coming in unannounced, just keeping an eye on everything. And then your main feed diver is the one that's doing the feeding. So what Hope is doing, she is waiting for our beautiful bowmouth guitarfish and our giant guitarfish. We're target training them, so you can see that Hope's got a target in her hand that's orange and black. And basically we have them accustomed to swimming up to that target, touching it, and then we offer them the food. So normally they're right here waiting, but for once they're not, which is weird. So today we're going to be feeding them trevally. As you can see, coming in from the left here is our beautiful Maori wrasse, or humphead wrasse, as sometimes they're called. And above is our beautiful Queensland groper bow. So she's going to get fed next, so she's just waiting her turn very patiently, very politely. Over the top you can see Harmony's coming down now. She's our giant guitarfish. So she's going to touch the target and then Hope's going to give her the fish. She's very dramatic about it. Oh, I'll give it to her. Nom, 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 nom. So these guys don't have sharp pointy teeth like a lot of shark species do. They actually have crushing plates. So they'll use that to crush up things like crabs and squid, different fish that they find. So they would normally forage for things on the bottom in the substrate in the wild. But obviously here it's a little bit of a different situation. So we hand feed them, which is pretty cool. It means that we can measure how much they're eating and really have an accurate amount. Oh, here comes Bowie. Oh my goodness. There we go. She's very food motivated. She loves to eat. So they both had one trevally, so they're just going to munch on them for a few minutes. Sometimes they come back for seconds, sometimes they're not that interested if it was enough for them. We do feed them every day. We do only hand feed them 3 times a week though. So they do get fed every day, but they are very, they do love to eat, so they will always come over.
Oh, hey Emily.
Yes?
Sarah Ann would like to know how much food sharks eat in the wild.
So in the wild, sharks are opportunistic hunters, so they'll generally just eat when they can, what they can. So they're not super picky. Obviously, we're always hearing of surfers getting bit on the leg or seals washing up, and they'll just have one bite out of them, things like that. So a lot of sharks, even the ones that don't eat big seals and mammals and things like that, even the ones that just eat crabs and little critters in the sand, they'll just eat when they can. So they might have a few weeks of really, really good hunting, and they'll come across lots of food, and then they might go a few weeks or even a few months without eating. There are a few species of sharks, so our beautiful grey nurse sharks we have in one of our other tanks, they can generally go the whole of winter without eating, so they're not very interested in food at that time. They're more interested in each other, so that's when they do their mating. But yeah, so they'll generally just eat when they can. Same as me.
And do sharks lose many teeth?
Yes, sharks lose all of their teeth. No, I'm kidding. So sharks actually continuously make teeth their whole lives. So something like a grey nose shark might go through 30 or 40,000 teeth in a lifetime. And they continuously drop out if they break or if they fall out when they're eating something. And then the row behind it will just push the next one forward. Animals like Harmony and Bowie, who have the crushing plates, they are still in kind of lines, so those plates will fall out and get replaced periodically, so they're nice and strong and have lots of little ridges. So what they're going to do now is they're actually going to pop under the archway. They're going to feed Bo. So Bo is a Queensland groper. She is very, very, very large. She's probably 150, 200 kilos. And yeah, so she's getting fed a mullet. Ooh, yeah, loves it. So that was Maddie just feeding her a mullet there. We're just going to pop around to the other side. They're going to be feeding our Reef Sharks next. So hopefully that'll be...
Don't get scared of the dark.
So they're just having a little chat underwater. So our divers actually communicate with each other using hand signals. So obviously they can't talk to each other as you would out of the water. So they'll use things like hand signals to say, are you okay? Is something wrong? Let's move over here. That's a shark. Move out of the way, things like that. So what Hope's doing now is we do have a different target for our reef sharks. So we've got black tip reef sharks and white tip reef sharks in here. And you can see just to the left of the screen, there's a black and white target. So that's what we use to target them. So you can see everyone's very interested. There's lots of fish. All the golden trevally are coming over. I don't know if you'll be able to see down the bottom, we have our leopard sharks and our tawny nurse sharks coming in. So we've got Kaya and Zebra, our two leopard sharks. They're sometimes called zebra sharks, depending on where you are in the world. They actually get that name when they're babies. They have stripes like a zebra, and then when they become adults, they do have the spots like a leopard. So you can see coming in, there's a little reef shark who's with the white tips, and then the black tips, they have a little black top of their fin. We're into it today. So we actually,
a lot of people are wanting to know how old our sharks are.
All different ages. So we have like a whole variety in here. So we have quite juvenile bamboo sharks. They're probably a couple of years old. And all the adult black and white tips are probably, what would you say, 10-ish?
Yeah.
So they're all adults. They are usually mature around 8 or 10 years of age. So they are all adults and they'll stop growing at that point. So you can see Hope has actually got a stick in her hand. So we do feed all the sharks with little pointy teeth. We use a stick to feed them, just for safety reasons. You won't be able to see, but the divers also wear chainmail as well underneath their neoprene gloves. Not interested. So it usually takes them a few minutes to kind of warm up to it. Sometimes they're way more interested than they are other times, so it kind of depends on whether it's Tuesday or if Mercury's in retrograde or if it's a, Aries season or whatever. You can see Bowie is just being a nuisance. She just likes to make her presence known. We're feeding a few different types of fish to the reef sharks today. So we've got pieces of mullet. We've also got yellowtail, herring, squid heads.
Do any of our sharks have names, Emily?
A few of them do. So I don't really know what the rule is. Ooh. So you can see this little white tip's quite interested, so he's going to keep buzzing around. When we have kind of individual animals that we can identify, they tend to have names, so we can, more for record keeping purposes, so you can write, Harry had 7 fish today, something like that. The black and white tips actually have numbers, which is very creative. So we have 6 black tips and 6 white tips. And the black tips are all girls and the white tips are all boys. So you can see the little white tip just took a chunk of mullet and he's just swum off with it. And you can see Bo's coming in to make another appearance, make her presence known. You can see she's pretty much the same size as our diver, so she's very, very large.
How big is the biggest shark in this tank?
The biggest shark in this tank is probably the tawny nurses. So you can see one of them just down at the bottom at the moment. So they're probably about 2.5, 3 metres in length. The biggest shark we have at the aquarium though are the grey nurse sharks, which are about 3.2 to 3.3 metres in length when they're fully grown. We're just waiting to, here comes a little black tip. So once the sharks kind of smell the food, the sharks have heaps of different ways that they'll hunt. So they have a few different senses. They actually have what we call a 6th sense. So humans have 5 senses. You have touch, smell, taste, hearing and sight. Sharks actually have kind of a 6th one. So they actually, all along the sides of their face and down the sides of their body, they actually have tiny, tiny little paws These paws are called ampullae of Lorenzini, which is a very fancy word. And they're filled with a kind of gel, and the sharks will actually use muscle movements and electrical impulses in the water to hunt.
What's this big fish here that looks half stingray and half shark?
So this is our shark ray. So aptly named, she does look a bit of both. So shark ray or bowmouth ray, this is Bowie. We like to call her that because she looks a bit funky like David Bowie. And also obviously bowmouth, that relates to that.
And why don't the sharks eat all the other fish that are swimming around in the tank with them?
So I was saying before, we do actually feed this tank every day. So 3 times a week, all the animals get hand fed. And then on the other days, we actually give them a surface feed. So we'll just throw food in from the top. So they are all very well fed. We balance their diets quite well, give them enough, make sure there's enough food going into the tank for everyone. So obviously you can see all the fish are kind of picking up quite a lot of it. So we do make sure there's different sizes of food as well for different animals. So it doesn't all disappear before it hits the bottom. So the sharks are pretty well fed. They're not really interested in any of the other animals. It's not too eventful today. So the reef sharks are a little bit hit and miss. Some days they're absolutely ravenous and some days they don't want anything to do with us. So today's a bit of a middle ground. So we have had a couple show interest, but it can take them a few minutes to realise what we're doing.
How big is the tank?
So the tank is about 2 million litres of water, and it's about 4 metres in depth. So it's pretty large. There's enough room for everyone. And we also have it kind of organised so there's enough depth for everyone. So we have all the reef sharks, obviously they're continuously swimming. They use the top part of the water column.
Oh, here's a really good question. How big are their poo?
Oh, it depends on the shark. So some of them have really long poos and some of them are kind of a bit more just kind of dissipates as soon as it hits the water.
For the people who can't see Emily, she's making great hand gestures of like poo dissipating.
That's what it looks like. It just looks like a big cloud. So I think we're actually going to be moving over to our next station now. So we have different stations for all the animals, and that's so they know where they're going to get fed and we can kind of target them a little bit better. I mean, there's still animals that will come in and, you know, try and get the food from them. But we try and keep it a little bit more organised. So the next station we're going to is our Sawfish Station. So we have 2 beautiful sawfish. We've got Roger and Ryobi. Props to anyone who gets that joke. Oh, it's going to go dark for a sec, guys. And light again. And it's going to go dark again. We're coming around to our big, beautiful window with the big wave. So this front section in the big sand flat is where we feed our sawfish. So obviously the sawfish have a really long rostrum. You'll see them when they swim past. It looks like a saw, hence the name. So we give them plenty of space to be able to turn around and find their food easily enough. So you'll see Hope, she's going to come and stand in the middle. She's got a really long black stick. We actually put the food on top of that stick. On the end of that stick, sorry. And then we slot it underneath the sawfish. So here comes Roger. He's coming in. Sorry, Ryobi. They look very similar, forgive me. So Ryobi, he's the bigger of the 2. He's a little bit more boisterous, a little bit more kind of commanding personality, whereas Roger's a little bit more subdued. So it's always Ryobi that comes in first to feed. You can see Hope is just slotting that underneath his mouth. In the wild, they hunt using that rostrum, so the big saw nose that they have, and it's really, really, really sensitive. So you'll see them sometimes when they're swimming in the tank, they'll accidentally brush up against things with their face, and you can see they kind of react really quite suddenly to it, so it is super, super sensitive. So they live kind of north of Australia, tend to live in kind of muddier rivers and creeks and things like that, quite shallow water, and it can usually be very, very low visibility. So they use that saw to kind of shuffle through the substrate and look for food that way. It's very, very clever. And if they do find something, it is quite intense. They do chop it, which is quite cool to watch. So we just feed them underneath their bodies so they're not using that slicing motion. It's a little bit safer for us. So we're feeding these guys mullet. chunks of mullet again. In the wild, they would just, again, hunt for things that were kind of a lot down low, hiding in the substrate. Types of crabs, little bottom-dwelling fish. Again, kind of whatever they can get their rostrums on, I should say.
How big do sawfish grow and how long can their saws be?
It depends on the species. So there's quite a few different species of sawfish. These guys we have here are the narrow tooth sawfish, so Pristus. They are a critically endangered species, but these guys can get to be, there are reports of like 6 or 7 metre long animals. These guys are probably about 3 metres at the moment. They're not fully grown, so they do have a little bit of growing to do. They're probably sub-adult males. The saw can probably get to about 2 metres, 3 metres. But again, it depends on the species. So there are species that are smaller than others. And you always hear reports of fishermen catching a 10 metre long sawfish, but no, they can't ever see it again. So those reports are generally not too accurate. So this is Roger. As you can see, he's not as interested. He's just coming in. There we go, there's that saw action. Yum, yum, yum. So these guys, again, like Harmony and Bowie, they have the crushing plates. They don't have pointy teeth. And they're very, very powerful jaws. As you can see, he's going over the top of it. So their mouths are actually underneath them. That's why you can't see where the food is disappearing to. So they have a really cool feature, and a lot of rays, all rays have this. They actually have the little holes on top of their head, they're called spiracles. So when they're sitting on the bottom, that means that they can actually pump water over their gills and oxygenate their gills, which is how they breathe. Even if they're sitting still in quite muddy or not very clear water.
So we have a lot of people asking about turtles. There are turtles in this tank, and if we hang around at the end of this sawfish feeding, we're going to feed the turtles there for a few minutes as well.
So as you can see, even though there's other animals in this section, it's only the sawfish that Hope is feeding. So we want to encourage them to know that this is their area, this is where they eat.
But quite a few people are asking what the targets are for.
So the targets, we use them for a number of reasons. So a lot of animals in all capacities, land, water animals, are target trained, or especially in zoos and aquariums. So we do use targets for things like if we want to catch them up to do a medical procedure, we can use that target to get them into a certain location, whether it be a holding pool or a lock or something. Obviously for food reasons, so you can say, here's your target, it's feeding time, this is your food, and then they associate that target with food, which can be quite a strong association.
And so that's why we're not seeing lots of reef sharks and other things coming around while it's time for the sawfish to feed.
Yeah.
He says as a reef shark comes past.
So sometimes the drive for food can be quite overwhelming, and that's the only thing they can think about. But generally they're pretty good. Generally they target very, very well. So the sawfish will generally come in maybe 2 or 3 times each, and then they'll kind of disappear. We give them about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll pull the feed. That's when we end it. So we only give them a period of time when they can come down to feed. So we're just waiting. Just trying to get the divers attention. You can't see off screen, everyone's waving at them. So I think the sawfish have had their fill. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take all our buckets and everything back up to the other end of the tank, and that's where we're going to be feeding the turtles. Oh, there's a turtle now. So we're just going to go around. The turtles have their own feeding station as well. Oh, the lights are on in this section. Just get to watch me. You can see this other lovely lady here with me is Ali. So her job is tunnel tender. So what she does is she has a sheet of paper, and she's both keeping an eye on the divers as well as writing down what everything's eating. So we keep very, very detailed records of what all the animals eat. So this large area is our turtle feeding station. So we have 3 beautiful turtles here. I know some of you are already asking about them, so we have 2 Loggerhead Turtles, both males. So here's one now. This is
Emily's
Dave.
run too fast.
Dave. This is Dave. So we've got Dave and Chong, and then we have a green turtle. Her name is Myrtle, and she's actually one of our rescue animals. So she was a boat strike victim, and if she comes through, you'll be able to see that she's quite floaty. So her bottom does sit a little bit higher than her head does. Here she is. So because Myrtle is a green turtle, adult green turtles actually are pretty much herbivorous, which means they only eat greens. So things like seagrass and seaweed and kelp, things like that. They do eat fish as juveniles and kind of coming up to that adulthood stage. So you can see Maddie has actually got some lettuce for it. But as you can imagine, squid is a lot more delicious than lettuce. So it does take her a few minutes, if at all, when she wants to eat. She's generally pretty good. But if she sees the boys, you know, getting a good squid meal, then she's not too interested in the lettuce, as would a lot of us be. Don't know about you, but I prefer calamari over salad any day of the week.
How big can turtles get?
Huge. So these 2 species are actually the 2nd and 3rd largest species of turtle in the world. The largest is actually the Leatherback Turtle. They can get absolutely ginormous. They can be over a ton in weight. The green turtle is the 2nd largest, so these guys can be a couple of 100 kilos. Myrtle is, I think, maybe like 80 or 90 kilos at the moment. So she's not fully grown. She does have some growing to do. So she eventually will be bigger than the 2 boys. The 2 boys are Loggerhead Turtles, so they're probably almost fully grown. So they are bigger than her at the moment, so they're about 110, 120 kilos. And these guys actually remain carnivorous through their whole lives. So even as adults, they'll eat things like fish and squid, lots of different stuff. So while these guys are feeding, we're actually just going to wrap it up here. If you are interested in any other online entertainment today, we do have another live stream from our Illawarra Fly Treetop Adventure, and that is going live at 1:30. I think it's 1:30. We'll post it. We'll let you know. We'll post it and let you know. But that'll be quite cool. So they're going to be doing an introduction of what they do down there at that facility.
For anyone interested in turtles, we will be doing a live stream just on turtles next week. So keep an eye out for that on our Facebook page.
If you have any more questions, send them through. We are going to be answering some more questions after this. But for now, I'll leave you with our beautiful turtles feeding. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, that's about it.
And here's a turtle's butt.
Here's the turtle's butt.
Bye.